Welcome to Season 5 of the Get Out of Teaching podcast, presented by Larksong Enterprises. This podcast is for teachers who are considering leaving education but feel like they have no options. I'm your host, Elizabeth Diakos. I'm a career transition coach who guides overwhelmed teachers out of education and into a life they love. In this season, we'll be speaking with wellbeing experts who can help you to stay well as you plan your exit. But I also want to share something with you. Many teachers want to escape the classroom, but still have a passion to teach. If that sounds like you, then consider becoming a learning success coach. Founder Kahila Sivas has created a business in a box. It's a 12-week guided process to build and launch your independent coaching practice with no profit share or franchise fees. Be inspired by the latest stories of teachers who are leaving the classroom at www.learningsuccesscoaches.com and get out of teaching with confidence. Episode 21. Hi everyone, welcome to the show. On today's show, I'm so delighted to be speaking with Jason Patanjo, who is a real estate agent from Florida, but also a teacher. So welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It was very nice to be here today. I'm very excited to share with everybody my story about finally getting out of the teaching profession and what I've been through to get to that point. It was a lot of work. I've been teaching now for 15 years. Finishing up my 15th year, I ended up leaving school, or should I say graduating college, with my master's and $250,000 of student debt.
Wow.
Which in America, because, college is so inexpensive here, hence I say that, a little sarcastically. I grew up on Long Island. I wanted to be a Long Island teacher. Teachers there do very well. Life had a different path. I ended up moving down to Florida, and I've been here now for 15 years. I ended up moving back to New York. This is how the whole way of getting out of teaching was, because I wasn't happy from the beginning. The first year I started teaching, they cut our salaries. Then they froze our salaries for almost 7 years. So I was making $40,185 for 8 years. And that's going from during the recession, going through all that stuff that we had in the US at that time. After about 7 or 8 years, I had to move back up north because we had a lot of death in the family. I ended up getting a job in New York City. Luckily, using my years, I was able to make 6 figures. And it was nice, don't get me wrong. But between the 5-hour commute, leaving my house at 4 or 5 in the morning, getting to school by 8, then having to leave school on Mondays, it was 5 o'clock. We left school. I didn't get home till 7:30. Tuesday, we left at 3. I didn't get home till 5. The traffic was just ridiculous. And when the snow came, it was even worse. Especially traveling over the Throgs Neck Bridge, watching the bridge sway as you're trying to go through one lane of traffic. It's taking several hours to get through. And I lived all the way on the south shore of the east end of Long Island. So it was not an easy commute. In fact, there was a Delta flight. I'll never forget. I was traveling over the bridge home when the Delta flight slid off the runway at LaGuardia Airport. Nobody was killed, thank God, but that was definitely a sight to see because they shut the bridge down again. That was when I started to get into real estate.
Hang on, just
yes.
Wind back just for a minute. How did you get into teaching in the first place? You said you didn't love it right from the start, but what motivated you to go into it in the first place?
I was on my way to law school when my stepfather passed away. And unfortunately, I had to run my family's business. I had 2 teenage younger brothers. I had a mom who was depressed. So I was kind of like the person who had to run everything. So while I was working full time, it was easier for me to just get a master's in education, do what I needed to do. And most of my friends who were lawyers had teachers as their other halves, and they were happy. Teaching was always a good career, especially on Long Island. Things have changed over the last couple of years. That's why I basically, walked away or had to walk away from law school to go into teaching.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now you can go back to where you are now.
Okay. So I'm very passionate about this because it's tough. I ended up in 2014 moving back because we've lost a lot of family. Moved from Florida back to New York. Got a teaching job in the Bronx. It was a very scary school. Not gonna lie. There was a lot of gang members. It was a theater arts school, which was nice because it was better kids, but they were still from, the hood. They were not really the greatest of kids. Many of them I still keep in contact with because they were the good ones. But it was scary, being in that kind of a neighborhood, especially being my race. No offense, not that I'm trying to be racist, but it could be scary when it's like, 4:00 at night and it's dark.
Yeah.
You're walking through with a woman who, because me and my friend Sophia lived close, we would walk and we would go to the train or the subway, whatever. Long story short, I ended up sticking there for about 2.5 years. Realized I hated it up there. It was no better than it was in Florida. But I didn't know what to do with my life. I was making good money, bad commute. I told my other half, we're out of here. We packed up. We left within 3 months. We were back to Florida. Come back down. I worked in a bank for a very short period of time. Sorry. For a very, very, oh, goodness. I apologize. I worked in a bank for a very short period of time. That lasted about 6 months. And I went right back to the classroom because it's all I knew.
Mm. So tell me what was wrong with the bank. Why did you not like the bank?
I don't like authority. Authority is a very big issue for me. So when I was at the bank, I had a lot of people like standing on top of me, listening to my conversations with customers, trying to educate people. I was told at the bank I'd be an educator. There was no educating. I was basically selling checking accounts. And if the checking account closed, I got punished for it. If the savings account closed, I got punished for it. If the loan didn't get approved, I got punished for it. And it was just not for me. I couldn't do that kind of a career. Like I was told I'd be educating, which is what I want to do. I just didn't want to do it in a classroom. Yeah. So it ended up, I said, I'm done, and I went back to teaching because it's really all that I knew. So going back to teaching, for the first couple months, it was good. I enjoyed it. The kids were great. I had fun. One afternoon, I'll never forget this day as long as I live. I have zero gas in my car. Zero gas. I had to make my car payment. I was literally looking for change in my console. I was looking under the rugs. I was looking in my wallet. I had nothing. I had $7 in my debit card or on my bank account. And I'm like, this is not a way to live. I can't do this anymore. So I went and got my real estate license. I sold my house up north myself, which I was very lucky. I ended up going into real estate. It was just going to be for a little extra money. That was really what it was for. But I ended up, 4 years later, I'm a broker associate. I'm getting my broker's instructor's license. I have agents that work for me. I'm in the process of doing about 5 or 6 flips right now. Wow. I'm also doing several sales. I am still teaching. I'm still teaching because I needed that consistent income to get me to that point. 2021 was a rough year. The pandemic was ridiculous. So my business died, but now it's back in 2022 and it's just killing it. I can't be any happier with the way things have gone on in my career over the last year. I do have this newfound attitude about teaching. And I've expressed it in the your site on the thread. A lot of people are like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, you just got to not care. I walk in there and I just don't care. If you fire me, great. You don't fire me, that's okay. In fact, today I was just told I had to sign my contract for next year. Just today. Right. The principal came up to me and said, I need your commitment for next year. I said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. He goes, no, you're not understanding. I need your commitment for next year. And I said, all right, I signed the doc, but What are you going to do? Take my teaching license? Big deal. Boo-hoo. The sad part is I look every single day at my county and several other counties that are close to me, and the positions that are opening up, it's just ridiculous. Today was 458 open positions in my county. Orange County, which is the next county over, they have about 600. The county underneath them, Osceola, I used to work for them, they're at 550. You're going to need me more than I need you. It's true. I love my principal. That's my problem, is I love my AP and I love my principal. They're such wonderful, wonderful people. And it's very tough for me to sit here and be like, oh my God, am I not going to go back next year? But I have the decision whether I want to go back or not.
Yeah.
I don't really see myself going back, to be quite honest. I'm going to be traveling a lot more now from here to New Jersey because I do deals up there. Why do I need the aggravation? Why do I need the harassment, the thing? I went out on FMLA leave only a month ago in April because a kid cursed me out, which is very rare because I don't usually get cursed out by kids. But this kid was such a smart ass. And the things he said were so bad that I was like, you know what? I'm done. If I don't get out of here, I'm going to end up in prison. So that's when I went into my principal and said, I'm taking FMLA leave. And he tried to talk me out of it. And the union tried to talk me out of it. And I was like, no. I was like, it's either that or I quit. So they gave me a month off. And they were like, just go home. Don't worry about it. We'll be back. You get to that point where you go from being poverty stricken to where you're looking for dimes and quarters and nickels to put gas in your car, to now and not to brag to your listeners, I just bought my third BMW. Wow. I just bought a 5 Series. I have my X5. I got rid of my X4. I'm getting another X5, and I have my 5 Series. Life is very different now. It's extremely different. I have a career that I love, people I work with. My kids don't bother me anymore. If they annoy me, whatever, I don't care. They already know I can leave. Because in the US, when you go on FMLA, they don't pay you for that. Well, I don't have to worry about that anymore. And this was the sad part of my situation, where 4 years ago, when I came back to Florida and realized I have a master's degree. Why am I looking for quarters on my console to pay for gas? And by the way, that specific day, I was only able to put 80 cents of gas in my car. Luckily, I had enough fuel to get home for the weekend. And then I ended up getting paid the following week. But it was like I was asking this one for money, that one for money. I came from a fairly well-off family. Why am I doing this? What am I doing to myself? And that's when I was like, I can't do it no more, and then being spoken to like I'm some kind of animal. And I loved it when parents would say, hey, this is, I pay your salary. And a couple times I've had smart-ass remarks where I said back to them, you know what? My check's been a little low lately. I think it's time for you to give me a raise.
Yeah, fair enough.
And now the slap in the face in Florida is, if you are a new teacher, you're getting paid the same as a veteran. So like me, who's 15 years in, a new person coming right out of UCF is getting the exact same salary that I get. Yeah. And I've been there for 15 years. If that's not a smack in the face, I don't know what is. And the governor thinks it's funny. He's like, oh, you'll be fine. Because the next raise that I'll see from the district is at year 18, which is in 3 years. Cost of living is going to go up in 3 years.
Yeah. So will you be out by then, Jason, do you think?
I have a funny feeling in 11 days I'll be out.
Okay.
It's true. We have 11 school days, 13 if you count the teacher work days, but I don't count those. I'll be out probably in 13 days. Yeah, I think it's done. The only issue is my APM principal. The first time in my career, well, the second time that I've actually fallen in love with my admin. And now it's like, oh my God, I'm at the point where screw it, I don't even want to bother. You know, it's like, what are we doing this for? Why are we here? We're just being abused over and over and over. We're in that bad relationship that people, you know, I know all the teachers in the country are going through the same thing. You know, and I also, as I'm looking at myself in the screen right now, I see the weight I put on. That wasn't me 10 years ago. I was a lot skinnier. I looked much healthier. I had nicer hair. I dressed much better. It took a lot of years. Now things are starting to change. And trust me, I'm not going to let this train end to spend 8 hours in a classroom or 7.5 hours in a classroom. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
I feel like life is passing me by, and
so
you know,
so would you be, if you leave teaching now, would you be okay financially? I mean, I guess you could sell some cars.
Well, because not to brag, but I guess this is like my passion. I've already made my teaching salary 3 times over in the last 6 months, just in what I'm doing, just in you know, real estate deals and flips, sales, everything else. Now, don't get me wrong, I busted my behind. So if any of these guys that are listening to this want to become an entrepreneur, want to do something in real estate, want to open their own business, it's possible, but you've got to work your butt off. And when I tell you I did 100-hour weeks from 4 a.m. till 11 o'clock at night, doing deals, writing up contracts in the middle of the night with one eye open, trust me, I did it. You know, studying for my broker's exam, studying now for my broker instructor exam, because once I become a broker instructor and I get a job, I'm looking at almost a $2,000 income a week just on that alone. So if I do like a boot camp once every other week, I'm looking at almost $100,000 a year just in doing that. And then everything else is sugar.
Wow. Okay.
But it's up to them. You got to do the work.
Let me ask you then, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling really overwhelmed, stuck, lost, hating their job and wanting to work on a pathway out? Because you said before something that really intrigued me. You said you've got to stop caring. Tell me more about that.
I just have that attitude. I don't care. Like, listen, if the kids learn, great. If they don't learn, that's great too. I used to put my passion and soul into the kids. I wanted them to get ahead in life. But if they're not going to care, then why should I? You know, coming in and just having the attitude like, hey, you want to be here? Great. You don't want to be here? Sit in the back and do nothing. I pick my battles. I have one student in my class, I could name him right offhand. Every single day, same concept. Comes in, watches TikTok for 20 minutes, texts his friend for about 20 minutes, and the last 10 minutes of class, he goes and takes a nap. Every day. Same thing. Never fails. I'm like, listen, you've been here since August. You want to learn? Great. Now, with the EOCs coming, he's like, well, I don't get it. I'm like, oh, well, that sucks to you, doesn't it? I'm not going to pay attention. I'm not going to sit here and go over everything for the whole year. Why? Because you just woke up in May? That's your fault. Yeah. And yeah, that's when you could see teacher burnout is real, because it is. I mean, by my 6th and 7th period class, and I hate to say it, I'm so exhausted from the day. I'm just like, whatever. Play on your phone for the rest of the period. I don't care. We've been doing study hall now for 2 weeks. I let the kids just sit on their phone. They don't bother me. They don't say anything. Like, I'll talk to them, but that's about it. I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to do like what I used to do years ago. If somebody feels overwhelmed, take it a day at a time. Know that bell is going to ring, but do yourself a favor and make sure that you're not giving yourself, or you're doing things for free. The minute you start setting that doing after school programs, going to dances and doing all these other extracurricular activities, and you're taking time away from your family and you're doing it for free, you're setting the precedence that you're going to do it forever. And they'll take it. They will take it. I don't do anything after school. If I don't see a dime, nope. I don't even do planning anymore. Like when teachers are out and they need me to cover, when I realized I'm only getting like $20 for that planning period, no, I don't need it. I'm good. Thanks. Because all it does is raise your tax bracket anyway. And you're going to pay more taxes. So by the time you're done, you make $8 doing it. It's not worth it.
Right. So you're saying that if someone's away, so I'm not familiar with this process, that they'll pay to cover their class for one.
Yeah.
For one
so
period.
like if I'm on my planning period is second period.
Yeah.
If someone is out and they don't have coverage because we have a shortage of substitutes, they'll call other certified teachers out of their planning period to go to the class to do it.
Right.
Now, some teachers have the option of saying no. I'm one of them. I tell them no. I'll tell the girl, sorry, find somebody else. They can't force you to do it because I'm a union member. Now, non-union members in my state, they can. They can force you to do it. But being in the union, I pay my dues. They can't tell me you have to. They know they can get in trouble for that. So they never call. I cut that off real quick after I realized it was only $20.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because here
it's not worth it.
Here you just get told and you go do it. So,
no,
and it
wouldn't be. In the US,
there's no extra pay, but you know we also have a living wage, so it's a bit different.
Well, that's the other thing. we in Florida do not. You know, people think it's so cheap here, and it's not. It was at one time, but now it's ridiculous. You know, even my little house is $310,000, and it's a little house. I live in a small house. I like small. I don't want a big monstrous house. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. But it's the area that I live in that keeps it expensive.
Yeah. Okay. So if someone was planning to get out and they wanted to get into real estate, what would be like the first? So they're still teaching. They're exhausted every day. They might, driving home, maybe they've got a family, but they still want to plan their exit. What would be the first couple of steps? Because have you set up a business for yourself? Are you like a sole trader, or I don't know what you call it there. I've forgotten.
A realtor. Yeah. What we'd have to do is you'd have to take your test. That's in all 50 states in the U.S. You'd have to take your exam. You'd have to pass it. You have a certain number of hours you have to take for a class.
Okay,
get that done.
Stop. What course is it that you have to do? What you've got to study something?
Whatever state you live in has its own separate real estate course.
Okay.
So there's not one class. It's one, every single state, like Florida has a 72-hour class or a 63-hour class. New Jersey has 120 and 150-hour class. Arizona's I think they're 70 and 62 or something like that. So every state in the U.S. has a different class they have to take. Okay. They all have to pass the state and national exam. It's usually 100 questions, the same thing. After that, they have to build their base. I use teachers, believe it or not, to build my base. Most of my clients have been educators. So I go and I talk to my colleagues and see what they need. I've done some sales with them. I've done some purchases with them. And then they tell other people. And then eventually it gets out of the classroom. And that's how I built my business. Mm-hmm. I was friendly with everybody.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've really got to be a bit of a people person to be in real estate.
You do. You have to be a people person. You have to talk to people. You have to make sure that you're listening to their needs and not telling your own. But people will come to you because you're the expert. They know that you're the expert. Like you're the expert in your profession. Doing this, getting out of teaching. I remember doing my triage call with you, and it was very eye-opening because that back then when I did my triage call, I had just become an agent. So that was many, many years ago that we did our triage call, and it opened my eyes to so many different things. And I was shuddered to understand where I would be 3.5, 4 years later.
Yeah.
And here we are having this conversation on a podcast. So that triage call helped me a lot. And anybody who hasn't done one, get it done and sign up today, because you're not gonna regret it.
Well, actually, now I've stopped doing triage calls because
no,
it's not all bad. I'm launching a subscription program where people can just join it just for 1 month if they want, and there'll be some group coaching in there and some Q&A sessions. So I'm trying to because I need to pay for the podcast and all those things as well.
Of course, yeah.
And so it's got to be viable for me, and just time wise, those calls were taking up a lot of my time, and I want to make help people, as many people as I can. So this is
make money doing it. Yeah, of course.
Well, I want to be able to at least cover the cost of all the free stuff, right?
Yeah, of course.
The free stuff for you is not the free stuff for me. I just love to pay for the podcast producer and all that stuff. Yeah, but I love it. This podcast for me is like, it's proof that you can get out. So every time any teacher says to me, "Oh, but I couldn't possibly do this," I'm like, hang on a minute, listen to Jason.
I'm telling you, like that, and truthfully, thank you, because I was skeptical at first. And when we had that call and we had that discussion, I was like, no, and then we had that other conversation. I don't know if you remember, there was a lady who was, I don't remember her name. She lived in Tasmania though. And she was making like hats or something, or she was quilting something. I can't remember her name for the life of me. We had a great conversation for about an hour, and just listening to what you guys were going through over there is the same as it is here. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't feel alone anymore.
Yeah. So that was a group coaching call that you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. And it was by far one of the best things I ever experienced. It was just amazing. And it pushed me. And then people, I got rid of the toxicity, the people who were negative, the people who were like, you're never going to do this. You're going to be a loser the rest of your life. I changed. I've lost a lot of those friends, unfortunately, but they're still at the school struggling, and I'm not. In fact, after I get off the phone with you here, I have to go deal with some stuff that's going on outside. But at least I could say one thing. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to pay for those repairs on my house. Like other people will, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty better off than I was.
Yeah. And that's liberating, isn't it? Just being free to make decisions based on what you want to do rather than what you're forced into because you've got no choice.
Yes, absolutely. Now, if, I just told my boss today that I have or my principal today, that I have a closing next week. And he's like, well, I was like, I don't want to hear it. I'm not coming, period. I was like, you want to fire me? Go right ahead. What are you going to do? And he's like, all right, no problem. I'll approve it. Just put it through. When you get that kind of attitude, what are they going to do to you? Fire you? Big deal.
Yeah.
But make sure that whoever decides that they want to live like that and do that, that you have something to back it up. Don't be like, okay, I'm selling fiddlesticks on the corner and I'm making, a couple bucks. You need to make sure that you have some sort of income. You have to have some sort of financial background that you can, you can say, hey, screw it. I don't really care.
Yeah. So I always talk to people about, do you have backup, like someone to support you either financially or emotionally? And do you have a buffer, like a bit of savings? And then what's your bottom line? You need to know how much do you really need every month to live? And once you know those three things, you're already in so much more of a powerful position because that awareness helps you to make good decisions.
Correct. Because a lot of us, and those of us that are looking to leave this field, leave the teaching profession, it's sad because we're doing it because we did have a passion at one time to help the kids. But now with people abusing us all the time, kids included, parents consistently harassing us, sending us emails, politicians beating us down all the time, whether it's red or blue, it doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican, they're all doing the same thing. They're all trying to destroy us. The only difference is they're doing it in different ways. You see schools of education closing down left and right. There is no like, in other words, I just recently learned that North Carolina and I believe South Carolina now charges the teacher to pay for the substitutes when they're out. I mean, how do you do that? Yeah, how do you even do that? Like, if a teacher quits, what are you going to do? You're going to have them pay the salary? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But this is what these politicians are getting away with. They're doing things like that. I know my friend in Arizona, she lost her license to teach for a year. In Florida, we don't have that rule. But I'll be honest with you, they're so bad off that they can't do that because we're like the third lowest paying state in the country. You know, it's sad, but this is what you've dragged us all to. And now it's like, you know, my principal knows my attitude. He's like, listen, I want you. I need you here. I'm like, all right, well, I'll come back if I feel like it. I maybe want to work part-time next year. I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, I want to see how the summer goes. Because if I feel happier traveling around and doing my own thing, why would I want to go back to be stuck in a classroom with a bunch of bratty 15-year-olds?
You're really selling it.
Yeah. I did.
Okay, so Jason, as we wrap up this conversation, I've got one final question for you. I've been asking everyone this question. What's your favorite song?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard one. You may not know this one. No One's Gonna Change You by Raina. It's a club song because I'm from like the late 90s, early 2000s, New York City club kids. So yeah, it's No One's Gonna Change You by Raina.
And what is it about that? What lights you up with that song?
Because it's about change. It's about the girl singing to the other person that no one's gonna change you. Education's never gonna change. It's gonna be the same. So I'm gonna leave. It's my time to go. That kind of thing. But it's just a fast song. And that's definitely my favorite song in the whole wide world, is that specific one. Because I'm going to change. Education will not. There you go.
I love it. Jason Patanjo, thank you so much for joining me today on the Get Out of Teaching podcast.
Thank you. Take care.
You've been listening to the Get Out of Teaching podcast, presented by Lark Song Enterprises, with your host, Elizabeth Diakos. Thanks for listening. If you need more support in your journey out of education, take a look around my website, larksong.com.au, where you'll find free resources, my resume revamp product, and a link to book a strategy call with me to get you moving forward. I've been where you are now, and you don't need to do this alone.